Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the April Nutrition Support Monthly Call. This is Misty Woods, and I'll be leading today's monthly call. So here's today's agenda. We don't have a lot of new information to discuss. It's mainly a lot of overviews and reminders. So we'll go over the CEP population data. We'll go over the 2023 equipment grant. Then we'll talk briefly about summer feeding. We'll go over some new memos that have been posted, and then we'll talk about some health inspection reminders, what we have for upcoming trainings, and then we'll do a brief overview of the Louisiana Fit Kids website update, and then we'll go over our staff that we have. So let's talk about CEP, about the population data that is going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. So you have your population data that's going to be due. So on this screen is basically the current USDA guidance. So there's many guidance materials available for more information on CEP. And just please note that the CEP guidance has been recently updated. So the first one, Community Eligibility Provision Planning and Implementation Guidance, that was updated in February, and that replaces the 2016 version. And it is linked on this slide, so you better click on it once the slides are posted. The second one, the Community Eligibility Provisions Guidance and Updated Q&As, which that also was released in February of 2024. The next one, Community Eligibility Provision Implementing the New Minimum Identified Student Percentage, that was released back in September of 2023. And then CEP, Statutory Annual Notification and Publication Requirements and School Years 24-25 Election Deadline, and that was released in February of 2024. And again, all of these are linked on the slide so that you can easily get them whenever the slides are posted. So on this slide, you're going to find the listing of the CEP deadline dates. It's important to note that all SFAs must confirm the population data in eScholar CEP Manager by April 15th. So it's April 2nd. We have until April 15th to do that. And then by June 30th, you must make your final elections regarding the CEP for 24-25 school year in eScholar. And again, if that changes, this year it's supposed to be an eScholar for both population and elections. If for some reason that would change for elections, we would definitely let you know, but the plan is that it will be done in eScholar this year. So all SFAs, even those not intending to apply for CEP, with the exceptions of the traditional RCCIs, you must submit the population data in eScholar to the state agency at the site level for no later than April 15th. All population data will automatically be pulled from the eScholar system, and SFAs will only have to confirm that the data is correct and that all operating school sites are included. So when you're going to log into eScholar, there's a couple of things you want to check to make sure that you have all your schools are listed and that the data that's in there is actually correct. If it's not, you're going to need to, and I have a couple of slides in a little bit that's going to go over where you need to, who you need to contact, but that's the most important thing, is that when you're in eScholar that you're making sure that all that data is actually correct. So the CEP Manager icon is that abacus on the navigation panel on the left-hand side. If you don't have that icon, it means that you don't have the rights to the CEP Manager function. So the icon's only going to appear for those users that have the rights to that, and that's done within the Security Manager. And the CEP Manager allows that user to view, update, and certify that data. So the population tab data displays the total identified, the total enrolled, the district trend, the population status, and election status due dates. And the locations and the pending data are listed below in the summary information. So if you click on the thing on the little arrows where it says click here on the slide, it goes into each individual school. And then once the data has been reviewed, the user must submit and certify that data. So you're going to have to check the box next to the certification statement and then click the Submit and Certify Population button. But please don't do that until you know for sure that that data is actually correct. So when you're going to log in too, you want to make sure that you refresh that data prior to making that submit, prior to hitting that Submit and Certify. So once you submit the data, that approval status, basically second to left-hand column, is going to change to submitted. And then once we approve it here at the state agency, we have to accept it first. So once we accept it, then you'll start seeing accepted under approval status on your end. So, like I mentioned previously, if you're having any issues with your data or you have questions to ensure that all those identified students are in eScholar, if you have any issues at all, please reach out to Jane. We want to make sure that everything is in there and it's correct. Because I've talked to several districts so far, and few of them have told me that something doesn't seem right. So they were going to look to make sure all their reports and everything had been downloaded and everything had been tagged correctly in their system, and some were having to reach out to Jane because they had schools listed that were no longer there, just different little issues like that. So on this slide, you're going to find an eScholar direct match contact information. And as mentioned before, you can contact Jane by email or by the phone number displayed on this slide if you need support or you have any direct match general questions. You can also contact the LEA security coordinator for new user access or to change or reset your password. So like I said, if you don't have access to the CEP manager, you can contact them to reset the password or get a new user access. So for CEP manager to be successful, CNP staff and data managers must work together to ensure that all enrolled children and identified students are up to date. So here's some things you may need to do. You may need to resubmit current students to Unique ID for ID assignment and claim the master record. That's probably already been done. Direct Match uses the master records in Unique ID to match against SNAP, TANF, and Medicaid. The history records of Unique ID are not used in Direct Match. You also may want to run Direct Match for both SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, and resolve all near matches, which you should be doing that monthly. Resolve all address matches, ensure all DSNAP children have been added to eScholar, ensure all DC extensions completed in your food service software are actually entered into eScholar through manual authorizations. So again, these are some things that you can make sure you have done, especially if your numbers are not matching. But if you have any additional questions or for more information, like I said before, please contact Jane at the email or the numbers that were provided on the previous slide. Okay, so now let's move on to the 2023 equipment grant. So the notification of award emails were sent out on March 21st. They would have came from Stacy Griffin. The award notification included the amount of the grant and a detailed instructions on how to request funding. Both the authorized representative and the superintendent were included on that email. In addition, those SFAs that were not awarded also received an email. But please note that there's always a chance of a second allocation of funds. So after the first allocation of funds are processed and distributed, if there are any unused funds, there will be a second allocation of funds. And if you were awarded in that second allocation, you will be notified at that time. And it probably will be obviously after these deadlines. So I'm thinking late fall, if we have to do a second allocation of funds. So SFAs that have been awarded must obligate funds by September 30th of 2024, which means you need to submit a purchase order or invoice. And SFAs must submit a request for reimbursement in the CNP system by October 21st, 2024. And although there are different due dates for those, is if possible, please submit both the purchase order or invoice and the request for reimbursement at the same time because we cannot process for payment until we receive both. So, in order to receive the equipment grant funding, the SFA must ensure site eligibility prior to applying for the grant funding, which you've already done that. And any sites that are identified as ineligible at any point in the grant process will be disqualified from the award funding and or may be required to pay the award funding back to the state upon audit. Make sure that you complete all procurement activities with backup documentation kept on file at the SFA CNP Central Office. Make sure you obligate the funds by obtaining that invoice or purchase order within 6 months of the notification of awards, and then submit that accurate and completed request for reimbursement for each site or piece of equipment that has been awarded by the obligation of funds deadline. So SFAs who are awarded the grant funding is going to receive the email like you should have already with how to request that reimbursement. Please check your online authorized representative contact information to ensure that the accurate email address is listed. So if you applied and you have not received either award or an email saying that you have not been awarded, please check that contact information and reach out to us if something was wrong with it so that we can make sure that you get that updated and we can make sure you receive that email. And so here's the steps for the online request for reimbursement. So step one, you're going to access the awarded site application that was initially submitted. And then under the award amount listed at the top of the page, you're going to click on the green request funding tab. And then the following box is going to pop up. You're going to input the actual cost of the equipment purchase as it appears on that purchase order or invoice that you turned in. And you're going to submit that again to stacy.griffin@la.gov. And note that the awarded amount automatically populates into the appropriate box. So basically, all you're going to put in this box is the actual purchase order or invoice amount. And then you're going to click on request. And then after entering the actual price, like I said, you're going to hit request and then click the close button. So then after that, after you click on that, a heading like the one below is going to appear. The lesser amount will autofill in the eligible amount, whether it be the actual cost of the equipment entered from the invoice or purchase order or the award amount. So pending a review for accuracy, the eligible reimbursement amount would be paid to the CNP sponsor account in the form of reimbursement. So payment is made by appropriation control after we receive the PO and we receive the request for reimbursement. We review it and the approval of the full request for reimbursement packet submission. Payment must be applied to the school food service account and is transmitted by EFT or check. So directors should notify the business office to expect that check or EFT in the amount of the reimbursement listed that's going to post to the school food service account. You should monitor the account for a deposit and ensure that a note is made to designate the funds as a 2023 NSLP equipment grant funding because it will show up like the reimbursements show up in your account. So, like I said before, to expedite the reimbursement process, email your purchase order invoice for each piece of equipment awarded and make sure it has the site listed on it as well to stacy.griffin@la.gov and then complete the online request for funding as soon as funds are obligated. If you have any questions, you can call or email. If you're uncertain about anything, or if you have questions about the documents, or if your documents were received, and if the reimbursement was approved, again, email Stacy Griffin for that. But some important notes to remember is you do not begin that procurement activities or purchase equipment prior to receiving that notification of award. Make sure that you obligate award funds within 6 months of that notification, and make sure you have that purchase order or invoice because it's required as proof of obligating those funds to apply for that reimbursement. So the following notes are going to appear in the financial documentation related to the expenditures and reimbursement for the 2023 grant. It includes the CFDA number of 10.579. An equipment grant is separate from CMP in terms of allowable expenditures and other program requirements. Please make sure you maintain all equipment grant documentation on file for 3 years plus the current year. And those equipment grant awards are subject to audit, which is discussed in the next slide. So, audits will be held during regularly scheduled administrative reviews and may take place during announced or unannounced visits. So, questions that may be asked can include, is the awarded equipment located at that physical site where it was awarded? So, make sure which site that you applied for and the piece of equipment that you applied for is housed at that site and is that piece of equipment. Is the procurement documentation maintained on file, and does it demonstrate a competitive procedure in compliance with USDA regulations? So make sure you're procuring this equipment properly. Were NSLP grant award reimbursement funds applied to reimburse the child nutrition program for the correct amount, and within the fiscal year funds were provided? So make sure that that funds was put into the school food service account in the fiscal year that it was awarded. Please note that state agency may impose fiscal action up to the total amount of the grant funding provided if an SFA cannot demonstrate proof of compliance with the federal equipment grant terms and regulations. And so, like I've said numerous times, if you have any questions, Stacy Griffin is the contact person for the equipment grant, and on this slide is her phone number and her email address. Okay, so next let's do a very, very brief overview of summer feeding program. We've just had our summer feeding trainings and we also went over it at our state update. So I just have a couple of slides specific to deadlines. So on this slide is the timelines for the summer food service program. If you notice the summer feeding plan survey, that was actually due for school food authorities by March 15th. However, we are asking that if you have not done it, please make sure you complete that by April 8th, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. Um, Next thing, non-congregate site request. If you attended the summer feeding trainings or if you have not attended summer feeding trainings, please make sure you review those slides, especially if you're planning to do non-congregate. Those site requests for non-congregate are due by April 15th for school food authorities, and then later dates for local and state government, Indian tribal, and private nonprofit organizations. And then another important thing to note here is that the application. So the applications are open. The deadline or the due dates for these applications are May 31st or at least 14 days before operations. So if you're planning to start at the first week in June, do not submit your application on May 31st. Make sure you give it at least 14 days prior to the date that you're planning to start operating. So, the summer feeding plan survey. So, the results of this survey will be used to determine which areas of the state are covered for both congregate and rural non congregate feeding locations. So, if the survey is not completed, locations may be offered to other sponsors per the hierarchy outlined in federal regulations. And just remember, completion of this survey is not an application. You will still be required to complete and submit a sponsor and facility application for each site. Non-congregant sites will require a site request form submission prior to the facility application submission. No sites may begin operations until they are approved by the state agency. And again, that last day to submit this survey is April 8th. So let's briefly discuss the difference between seamless summer and summer food service program. We had a couple of districts trying to decide which way they were going to go. So this is just a breakdown, just a very overview of it. So for SSO, SFAs administering the NSLP and SBP may participate. The standard reimbursement rates for national school lunch and breakfast apply, and the current breakfast and lunch meal patterns must be followed. And this is only for SFAs that are doing breakfast and lunch. For SFSP, SFAs, governmental entities, universities, and private nonprofit organizations can participate. So anyone can participate in summer food service program. The summer food service program reimbursement rates apply, which usually exceed the traditional national school lunch and breakfast rates, and the summer feeding meal pattern or the school breakfast, school lunch meal patterns can be followed. So you have a little bit more leeway with summer feeding, but SSO, a lot of people say it's just more streamlined because you're just basically continuing on from what you were doing during the school year. So if you have specific questions about summer, please contact Toya Porter. Her number here is on the screen, as well as her email address. She is our summer food service coordinator. So any questions, please reach out. We would prefer that you ask us prior to trying to do something and then it not be correct. Okay, so on the slides, a list of the memos that have been posted since the state update that we had at the beginning of March. We have quite a few to go over. So let's get started with those. So the first memo is SFS 24-54, and that's about the February 2024 SNAP and TANF files have been loaded to eScholar. Districts should resolve any near matches. For public schools is SNAP batch number 7668 and TANF batch number 7666. And then for non-public schools is SNAP batch number 7669 and TANF batch number 7667. And again, this was, if you need assistance with this, please contact Jane. So this memo is SFS 24-55. It's about the summer food service program survey due dates. Basically, we went over this in the previous slide. So the purpose of this, and I may have mentioned this before, but LDOE is basically conducting this survey for all SFAs and sponsors in advance of the program participation. The purpose is to ensure that the state agency is informed of essential information for use in program outreach and administration of the USDA Summer Child Nutrition Program. The state agency does expect that the projected information entered into the survey for the summer program may change prior to the submission of your actual online application. The survey consists of 9 questions pertaining to the sites and type of summer food service operation you're anticipating for the upcoming summer. So please read the questions and provide answers based on the operations planned for summer 2024 to the best of your knowledge. And please submit the completed survey no later than the due date listed for your specific sponsor type, and then refer to the memo to see instructions on how to access the survey. So, Memo SFS 24-56 is the February Medicaid free and Medicaid reduced lunch. Those files were loaded into eScholar Direct Match, and districts should resolve the near matches. Public schools is Medicaid free lunch number 7704 and Medicaid reduced lunch number 7705. Non-public schools is Medicaid free lunch number 7706 and Medicaid reduced lunch number 7708. And again, you would email Jane if you need assistance with that. Memo SFS 24-57 is the April 2024 training schedule. Today is the monthly call. And then on Thursday, April 16th at 1 o'clock, we will be training on hurricane preparedness. You can register for those trainings on Louisiana Fit Kids website. And all training recordings and slides are usually posted within a week after that live presentation. So this memo, SFS 24-58 is a reminder email about the previous memo that we just went over. So again, if you have not completed that survey, please do so by Monday, April 8th. So memo SFS 24-59 is the CEP population data deadline. This is also a reminder memo. So by Monday, April 15th, SFAs must confirm that population data in eScholar CEP Manager. That data is going to automatically be pulled from eScholar Direct Match System. And this will be the final date for matches and the submission of matches. Data will need to be refreshed prior to submission. And SFAs, again, are responsible for ensuring that all schools are listed, as well as the accuracy of the total enrollment, making sure to resolve all near matches and address matches, and the identified student percentages. So memo SFS 24-60 is about summer feeding. It's the site eligibility and enrollment. This is a very important memo. It serves the purpose of it is to provide more clarification on the differences between site types and the requirements for enrollment eligibility. So it provides answers to the following questions. So it says, what is the difference between an open and restricted open site? It gives you a definition of what's a closed enrolled site. It talks about what is a non-residential camp and how it is different from a closed enrolled site. It also talks about what is a residential camp. It also answers the question about how do camps establish site eligibility. And it also answers how a camp must document that meal reimbursement eligibility. So please, if you are planning to do summer feeding and you have some questions about site eligibility and enrollment, please refer to this email as it answers a lot of questions. Memo SFS 24-61 is also about summer feeding, and it's about non-congregant meal service in rural areas, and it's questions and answers number 2. So this memo is the second set of questions and answers for the rural non-congregate summer meal option that was established through the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023 and codified through the interim final rulemaking. And the purpose of this memo is to address additional implementation topics based on the feedback that was received by state agencies and program stakeholders. The first memo in this series, which was SFS P 07-2024, the non-congregate meal service in rural areas, that was questions and answers number 1. That was issued on February 21st, and that was updated earlier guidance. Originally, that was issued in summer of 2023 operations and ensures that consistency with provisions in the interim final rule. So please refer to this one as well, especially if you are planning to do non-congregate. It has a lot of questions and answers. Then Memo SFS 24-62 is the March 2024 SNAP and TANF files that were loaded into eScholar. Districts to resolve the matches below. So public school district is SNAP batch number 7800, TANF batch number 7801, and then non-public schools is SNAP batch number 7803 and TANF batch number 7802. And again, for here, it seems like I'm saying it up every slide. If you have need assistance, please email Jane. Memo SFS 24-63. This is about the paid lunch equity guidance for school year 24-25. And the purpose of this memo is to provide guidance to state agencies and school food authorities on the paid lunch equity requirements for school year 24-25. It explains the paid lunch equity exemption provided in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2024. And this memo also provides guidance for SFAs that do not qualify for the exemption. And we do intend to have a training on paid lunch equity. I don't have the exact, well, I do have the exact date in a later slide, but it's sometime in June that we are planning to train on paid lunch equity. And then Memo SFS 24-64 is to let everyone know that the summer feeding application is now open. So this memo announces that the 2024 Summer Food Service Program is now open for all SFSP sponsors. So please review the timeline to ensure that the application is submitted by the deadline. Some important reminders is that state agency approval of the SFSP online application is required prior to operation of the program. Meals served on dates prior to state agency approval of the SFSP online application are not reimbursable. For an overview of the non-congruent portion of the online application, please refer to attachment A of this memo. So again, here's your dates. You want to make sure that if you're doing non-congruent, that you have your non-congruent site request entered in by the deadline. And then all of their applications are submitted by the deadline. And again, make sure it's either May 31st or greater than 14 days before operations. Okay, so let's briefly talk about Louisiana Fit Kids website. So for those of you that were at the state update in March, you were able to actually see a demo of the updates to the Louisiana Fit Kids website. The biggest change is that when you go to Louisiana Fit Kids website, is now that all the sections are separated. So each section is also color coded. So you have a CACFP section that covers child care centers, family daycare homes, and then you have LDOE section that's school food service and summer food service. So the child care is in red, family daycare is in blue, school food service is in green, and summer food service program is in purple. So if you're trying to find training slides from a school food service training, you will need to click on the training slides under the school food service section or that green section. Only the slides for school food service trainings will be available there. So you will not find the summer food service trainings there. They're going to be under the summer section. And I think a lot of people were confused about that because they could not find the summer feeding trainings because this actually updated like right before the state update happened. So, like I said before, likewise, if you're trying to find the training slides for the summer food service trainings, you need to click on that training slides under the under the summer feeding section, and only the slides from the summer food service trainings will be available there. So again, that'd be under the purple section. So another thing to note is that the calendar of events are color-coded as well. So you can find the calendars in two different places on the website. You can view the calendar for each section by clicking on the calendar icon in each section. So at the bottom of the school food service, you'll see that calendar icon. Or on the main screen, you can click on that calendar. It's like on the left-hand side of the screen right under home, and it's actually color-coded there as well. So on this screenshot, you would see like on April 2nd, there's a green. If you would click on that green, it would show today's monthly call, and you could actually register for it from there. And then the same thing for the 16th. And then on the 3rd, there's a different color, which means it's just usually a general. If it's orange, it's usually just a general notation. So let's just go over, we've went over this a few times before, but I just want to remind everyone being that we are in April. So it is the responsibility of the school food authority to request 2 food safety inspections from their local sanitarian office and document their efforts. For those agencies that fail to obtain the 2 mandatory food safety inspections, LDOE will request documentation from those sponsors to show that they have made every effort to comply with the federal requirements. SFA should document their request in writing for proper documentation of their efforts to obtain those inspections. So for the March claim for reimbursement, you're going to get a reminder that's going to appear prior to submitting the claim, asking if there are any current year health inspections that need reporting in the CMP website. A response must be provided. For the April claim for reimbursement, sponsor users will not be allowed to submit claims beginning in April until the health inspection reporting has been done for each NSLP approved site. If both have not been completed, please be sure to contact that local health department regarding the completion of the remaining required inspections and document this in the CNP website. So, like we mentioned before, the state update, LDOE is receiving a USDA management evaluation for school nutrition programs this month. We are in the process of preparing for this. The management evaluations for school nutrition program will be April 29th through May 3rd. So basically, it's our administrative review from USDA. USDA Food Nutrition Services will conduct a comprehensive management evaluation of the state agency administration of the National School Lunch Program. Um, Summer Food Service Program will also receive a management evaluation, but has been pushed back. The management evaluation will determine whether the state agency has taken steps to ensure school food authority compliance with program regulations and whether the state agency is administering the program in accordance with program requirements and good management practices. We may potentially need to make some changes to certain processes, procedures, forms, etc., based on the results of our management evaluations. But if we do need to make any changes, we will notify you of any changes that may affect you directly. So we don't know what to expect yet, but we will basically just whatever they tell us we may need to change, we will change. So here are some upcoming trainings that have been scheduled. If they are not posted on Louisiana Fit Kids yet, they will be posted soon. So today is the monthly call, and we realize this may be spring break for some people, but those of you that are on spring break, they can always watch the recording or refer back to the slides. On April 16th, we will have the hurricane preparedness training. On May 7th, we will have our May monthly call. On May 21st, there will be a CEP elections training. On June 4th will be the June monthly call. And then on June 25th, there will be a training on the average meal cost and the paid lunch equity. So we are offering both a virtual manager training and an in-person manager training this year. So the virtual manager training is going to be held from May 28th through May 31st via Zoom. So on May 28th, it will be in the afternoon from 1 o'clock to 4:30. And then on May 29th and May 30th will be a full day training from 8:30 to 4:30. And then on May 31st will be the assessment quiz from 9 to 11:30. And in order to register for the training, participants must have their own email address. Participants must have a computer and reliable internet service at the training location. The computer must have both audio and video capability so that the participants will be able to see, hear, and participate in the training. And the assessment will be computerized, so participants are required to be proctored by the CNP director or designee. And SFAs may wish to host the assessment in a computer lab on their on site. We have quite a few people that have registered for the virtual training. So if you have not done so already and you want to register your staff, please do so. And again, this is for the virtual manager training that's at the end of May. So the in-person manager training is going to be held from July 8th through the 10th at Pennington. On July 8th and 9th, it will be a full day of training from 8 to 4:30. On July 10th, it will be a training from 8:30 to 12, and then the assessment will take place from 1:30 to 4. There is a cost associated with this. The registration cost is $60. This is limited to 40 attendees, so please make sure that if you want to register staff to register soon to get that spot before all the spots are filled. And for register for this training, participants must have their own email address. The participant must bring their laptop computer to take the assessment quiz on July 10th. The assessment will be computerized and the participants will be proctored by either someone from LDOE or Pennington. So this slide provides the contact information for the Department of Education Division of Nutrition Support, as well as some staff. This was previously mentioned and shared at other trainings, but I wanted to mention it again today. So as we talked about, the summer food service program has started to transition to underneath the community programs. So therefore, like I said prior to this, was if you have specific questions about summer feeding, please contact Toya as she is the summer food service coordinator. However, during this transition period, school food service staff will be assisting as needed with summer food service. So on this slide, it shows how David is the director of community programs, and then Toya is underneath there as the summer food service coordinator, and Tammy is the administrative assistant. Then we have Stephanie as the division director. You have myself as the director of the school nutrition. But then you have Tranja, which is the school food service coordinator, and then Mary Bacon is also the administrative assistant for the school side. And on all the monthly calls, I like to share the general division contact information, which is the main contact phone number and the main email address. And then on this slide is all of the school side staff with their phone number and email addresses. Again, I always tell everyone the quickest way to get in touch with someone or to get an answer is the general email address or the general phone number. In that way, that question can be directed to the correct person or the person that is available to answer the question at that time. So with that, that's all I have for today. It was rather short today. We didn't have much to go over. As always, you can contact us at the main number 225-342-9661 or Child Nutrition Programs at la.gov. Let me check the chat real quick and I'll get right back. Thank you, Jolene, for the good luck on our review. We are all trying to figure out what's going to happen since all of us that are in administrative positions have not been through a ME before, so it'll be new for a lot of us. And it looks like the other question has been answered in the chat. To my knowledge, it does not, your password does not have to be reset annually. All right, so I'm not seeing any more questions at this time. Thank everyone for being on today's call. And if anyone that is on spring break that was not able to get in the call and they're not sure how to get, please let them know that these slides will be posted within a week, and that it wasn't a whole lot of new information. So don't tell them not to worry. And we will see you on the next call on the 16th for hurricane preparedness. And if not, we will see you on the next monthly call in May. Everyone have a good afternoon. Thank you.